This is Darren McCarty, four-time Stanley Cup champion, Detroit Red Wings, Lemieux killer, Stanley Cup winning goal guy. You're listening to SportsRadioDetroit.com.
Pucking around.
Oh, Jesus.
Welcome to Pucking Around here on Sports Radio Detroit. I'm Jason Pinkham, and I'm here today with the franchise Steve Height for our weekly meeting of the minds in terms of hockey. Right off the bat, before we get started, Steve, how are you on this warm day? By the way, for the listener, before we get started, you can hear a fan in the background. It is warm in Michigan. We are a Michigan-based show. I don't want to open the window and hear the birds, so you get a fan. Steve, how are you?
I'm doing terrific. Like we were talking about beforehand, I'm just chugging a bunch of water today. I'm not used to how warm it is, that's for sure. It's kind of nice though, to be honest.
It is. It's a good day to be outside. It's a good day, and our response is to get inside and record a podcast.
I was outside Monday playing some outdoor hockey, so that was good enough for me.
I saw that. I was actually pretty jealous of your Snapchat. I need to get some wheels, man.
We'll get you out there.
That's a segment we need to do today. We're gonna do. We discussed that off air, talking about purchasing hockey equipment and all that it costs. We'll get into that, but let's start with the first news of the day before we even get into playoffs. ESPN is firing everybody. They're getting rid of everybody, especially people who are relevant to us. I want to start there. You were talking about the layoffs, and to be honest, my reaction to you was, who the fuck cares? It's ESPN. They got money. I don't really care. All those people are going to get jobs. But then you said two names that really caught my attention. You said Scott Burnside and you said Pierre LeBrun. So much so that I had to look up a running list, because not only did I not believe you, I didn't believe it at all. Because those two guys hosted, I guess, the only ESPN NHL form of recorded media, which was they had the ESPN Hockey Today podcast. It used to come out every Wednesday. It was the only form of media that they had that wasn't written that involved the NHL, and it was a show that I myself actually listened to fairly regularly. I wasn't an every week guy, but I would check in, once a month or once every other week, and it's kind of a bummer. But to be honest, and honest question, are you surprised?
Not really. I mean, I think like a few weeks ago they were talking about they were going to have to make budget cuts and such like that, and I figured the hockey department was probably one of the first to go. I mean, realistically speaking, they do maybe a 5-minute expose a week on some playoff hockey this time of year, and then you get what's his face to come in there,
Barry Melrose,
talk about it. Yeah, Barry Melrose with his mullet talking about some things he probably doesn't know that much about, which is fantastic as always.
Usually,
and then ever since the lockout, like you kind of said earlier, they've been cutting things out strategically with the NHL, and I know it's because they don't think they get the viewer base, and I mean they don't have any of the rights, they can't really display any of this stuff, and I think they probably were better off doing it anyway. I think the NHL, being as it is, needs to have its own entity anyway. No,
and I agree to some extent, but Pierre LeBrun, Scott Burnside in particular, like if you ever listened to that show, I don't know if you did or didn't, but I'm not going to heap praise on another podcast. I'm not really usually in the business of doing that, but that dude fucking cared, and it was obvious, and that dude put a lot of time and a lot of man hours invested into producing his show. I mean, he was oftentimes, recording, in the bowel, like he would also say, I'm in the bowels of, the basement of like Joe Louis Arena, the basement of United Center, whatever the story was, he would go to that arena and talk to a player, backstage more or less, and he would spend time, actually getting to know the story instead of just, skimming the stats kind of like, I do. So it's a bummer to see a guy like that go the way of the dinosaurs, but it makes sense. ESPN it wasn't committed to what they were doing. They were kind of Walmarting sports, you know what I mean? They were just kind of dipping their toe in and selling just the popular things. And,
Enough.
Yeah, they weren't, and they did it with everything. And I understand that's, it is what it is, but I just, I wanted to say I think Scott Burnside deserves a good job somewhere, and that's a guy that has a lot of good opinions to say, and he is very much a perfectionist that knows how to do his job well. So, to the listener, if you have the time, since you're listening to us, you listen to podcasts, obviously, go back, check a couple back catalog episodes of that show. That they really knew what they were doing. And you could tell, and one last thing, Steve, I'll let you go, I'm sorry. But there is one important thing to note. You can tell at a certain point about a year ago, the budget for that podcast just got cut in fucking half. Like, it had to have either been cut in half or cut completely off, because that dude was working with, like, no updated drops, no updated audio. He was just making, turning chicken shit into chicken salad. You know what I mean? So that's what it was really always amazing to me. But anyways, I'm sorry I cut you off. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I just, he was kind of one of the inspirations that I actually wanted to get into podcasting in the first place, because one of the first true loves of my life has been hockey in general, and it's always been something I've been fanatic about and religious to an extent. It's like my passion for hockey is almost cultish, I think some people might call it, but I entertain the fact that, like, without that podcast, I probably wouldn't be doing this right now. So I kind of got to give a nod to that too.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely a part of it. Is that's why I'm focusing so much on it for you guys to understand that both of us come from, like, having listened to Hockey Today, the podcast. Like, that was my first dipping my toe into not just podcasts, but hockey podcasts. Podcasting for me started with movie criticisms. How did this get made? We hate movies. But dipping my toe into the sports was ESPN Hockey Today, the podcast. And I don't know if they're going to try to continue it with someone else, but I do know that is a huge bummer that guy's gone. So anyways, I don't want to take up the whole show talking about it, but I just wanted to do a quick 10 minutes on it because it was interesting, and it's a very sad day for those of us that like hockey in the mainstream media. Speaking of hockey in the mainstream media, again, I have to reiterate, this is every year on this fucking show, Steve and I get together and we make our playoff predictions, and every year on this fucking show, we are like 84% wrong. And Steve, I'm beginning to question, do we know hockey?
Are we a hockey podcast? I'm not sure at this point.
Have we ever watched a game? Like, have we ever predicted anything? Like,
I think when it came down to individual matchups after the first round, we were pretty accurate. The first round is always the toughest because that's generally where the weird things. It's like the NCAA tournament, like the first 2 weeks is like a shit show because it's like all these random teams you don't know about only need one game to win, and that's when weird things happen like that. And I don't know, I hate to say it, but parity of the league, that's a lot of things we're seeing. It just I can't go an episode without saying it. It's a kind of a thing now.
Let's talk about some grit.
Talk about some grit. Amazing forecheck. What a guy.
Anyways.
Yeah. Exactly.
No, but it's frustrating because, you look at a team like, let's just go back to the first round again. So I got almost every series wrong. The only series, in fact, I got right was one of the ones you got wrong, which was the Washington-Toronto series.
Well, technically, I counted Washington to win.
Oh, you did? I didn't know that. I didn't actually see your bracket.
On my bracket, I did, yeah.
Okay, so but your heart was with Toronto.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, I predicted Washington to win that series. I said 5. They won in 6.
Yeah, I said 4. Yeah, I thought Washington was going to sweep them, and then
But I was wrong on literally every single other matchup. Like, it's to the point where, like, now don't get me wrong. The reason I'm talking about this in a happy tone, and I am happy, is because it was one of the best first rounds of the NHL postseason that I've seen in my lifetime in terms of quality of play from the winning teams.
I would agree with you.
That fucking Nashville series, Nashville sweeping Chicago, like
none of us called that. I don't think anybody I knew called that. I have some random friends on Facebook like, I predicted Nashville to win in 5 games. I'm like, show me the proof before the series started that you called that, please. I want to see this.
Yeah, people in Nashville probably had brooms, but they probably didn't believe it. You know what I mean? Like, to win, maybe 6. I think when we did our prediction show with Justin, I said Nashville is arguably the most formidable opponent for Chicago. Like, they're built to beat Chicago. We even had a discussion, teams building to beat Chicago. And then Justin tweeted out, and I want to talk about this a little bit. I don't know if you read the article, but he tweeted out that Chicago's kind of getting ready to live in Detroit Red Wing land. Like, they're like right there. Like, they have half their roster is signed for the next 7 years with no move clauses for infinity.
But how many of those guys are probably future Hall of Famers? 4?
Right. No, but that might not necessarily be relevant when they're all 30 plus.
True.
When you're it's not relevant in terms of right now. It's relevant in terms of all-time greats. We're going to look back on that team and they're going to be like, oh my God, they won all those cups. They're going to be lauded like the core of the 97, 98, 02 Red Wings teams. But,
yeah,
in the here and now, the future kind of looks a little dim for Chicago.
I wouldn't go that far yet. They fired 2 coaches this week. They fired their assistant coach, and I think they fired the AHL team coach. So I think that's the first step they're going to try to make before they even do anything with Joe Quenneville. I had a feeling that was going to happen, though. They're going to have to do something to answer for the poor performance. And, I mean, I think it's just one of those – it was just manifested to just happen that way. I mean, Chicago generally had a really good season, but they didn't go into the last 2 weeks of the going into the postseason, the last 2 weeks of the regular season. They did not play very well. They did not score very many goals. So, I mean – it's just one of those things that happens. You got to go back in and kind of retool and try again. And I think, honestly, for them, it would be better that this happens because then they kind of get a break. They played a lot of hockey over the last 5 years. They get a little bit of a downtime where they can get back and just kind of chill out a little bit. And I know most athletes aren't going to admit that, but that might be a good thing.
No, it might be. And I'm sure that it's for the better overall. And I'm sure that, come February of next year, we're going to be talking about a first or second place Chicago Blackhawks. I'm not saying they're not going to be good. What I am saying, though, is that they have like a little more than $1 million to work with in terms of your retooling, as you phrased it, in this offseason. And that's not much. That's actually almost nothing. And, in terms of you have a bunch of RFAs, you have a couple UFAs, and they have to deal with it. And that roster just didn't do anything in the postseason. And that, when you get swept, that requires movement, and when you have no movement that you can do, I mean, what do you do?
I think they're committed to that core. That's it. They are committed, and I think this year was a good year that they kind of those RFAs and those younger guys stepped in and played well, but. Then again, it's like some of these guys need to be resigned. Who is going to be moving out to accommodate some of these things? I heard maybe rumblings of Hossa might maybe retire this offseason. That could free up some money too. I don't know. But, I don't think they're in Disparageville yet. I think the next 2 years is definitely going to be a trend. We'll see what happens. But I don't think they're setting them. I think the management there is a lot smarter than management here in Detroit is. We're just going to say that flat out.
Well, I won't disagree with you, but I don't think the comparison, and no offense to this, I don't think the comparison is relevant. I think it's more in the sense of, I don't care how smart you are, you handed out infinity money and no movement clauses to your entire core, and your entire core just got pantsed by Nashville. So, regardless of how smart they are, their smartness got them to the point where there's no way out right now. And they don't.
Yeah, they just kind of have to deal with it.
And they don't have, first picks, to do anything with. It's not like Detroit where you got infinity third-round picks next year and a bunch of second-round picks and stuff like that. They don't have much wiggle room, and they're going to have to I guess, honestly, they're just going to have to try harder next year, really. Because you're not going to be able to, it's going to be basically the same team.
Because Scott Darling's probably going to want his payday. He played really, really well behind Crawford. He's, I think, a restricted or unrestricted, one of the two. I'm pretty sure it's unrestricted. I mean, that's a big piece that you're probably going to want to keep.
Yeah.
Some of the other guys, the younger guys like Smoltz and Rasmussen, I think they're like you're saying, like right now they're just kind of stuck. If people leave and they can't resign them, you just gotta have to fill the hole with an AHL spot and just kind of see what happens.
Yeah,
so, but if anybody can do it, it's probably them.
I was gonna say, you better hope that system is really good. So, anyways, moving off that series, let's move to the next series, which was Minnesota-St. Louis. Minnesota did what you never want them to do, which is they proved us right on the Bruce Boudreau curse, which is to say he gets he loses in 4 or 5 games every first round every year, regardless of how good his team is. And I said last week, or maybe it was the week before, that this year he gets a little bit of a pass because, unlike when he was in Anaheim and Washington, he doesn't have a team full of, elite, perennially all-star veterans to sort of shovel the blame off onto. He has a rookie team, or I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. It's not like when he was in Washington and Anaheim where you have a bunch of, perennial all-stars, potential Hall of Famers. So it kind of comes down to coaching. It's Minnesota where, your best players are Zach Parise and Ryan Suter, who, or I shouldn't say your best players, but your best talent, your most paid talent are Zach Parise and Ryan Suter, who are at best, low A, high B level talent. Ryan Suter is a great defenseman, but he's a great first defenseman. Doesn't really help in the playoffs. And the way that St. Louis handled them and the way that Minnesota looked, I mean, the question I'll ask you, Steve, is does Bruce Boudreau have a place in the NHL? Because he clearly just can't fucking get it done in the postseason.
It's so hard to say because what he did with that Minnesota Wild team was like a makeover almost. Like he took them from like barely a playoff team to pretty much top 2 in the Central, which with Chicago and St. Louis is pretty difficult to do, not to mention, Nashville in the mix too. Like, that's a pretty tough division to be successful in, and he did really well, especially with what they did. I mean, a lot of their success has been to their really good goaltending and their really good defense, but the thing that got them in trouble again was 1, untimely penalties, and 2, goal scoring. They didn't have it, which was weird because when we talked about it, like, I'm saying, St. Louis is the one without any goal scoring because, like, you think after, Tarasenko, like, who's going to score? Fabry? Like you're thinking like they're way outmatched in that, but it was completely flipped the other direction. It's like St. Louis had the timely goal scoring and the depth scoring, and they just had an overall better game. It's like it's hard to say if it's all Bruce Boudreau, but it's got to be in your head, man. If you're a team coached by that guy, you have like a black cloud over the playoffs on your team anytime you sign that guy.
Yeah, no, exactly, and that's kind of what I'm getting at because he has proven time and time again he's one of the best regular season coaches in the NHL. Like he could take any roster and make them a top 2, top 3, top 1, team. But come postseason, you're out in 6, almost guaranteed 6 or less. So, that might be what I start calling him now, 6 or less, because he
first rounder.
Yeah, and that's also the amount of burgers he eats. Anyways, jumping over to the other series, what I want to do is I want to do a pass around all the first round, and then we'll get into the second round. So. Going into another series, this series was what I like to refer to as a housing. Anaheim and Calgary was equivalent to me fighting a 7-year-old. Like they might get a few shots in, he might like accidentally hit you in the balls because he doesn't know any better, but you're still going to just absolutely house him because you're bigger, you're faster, you're stronger, and you're a lot smarter, and you know how to manage your physical energy better. I mean, Anaheim just made Calgary look like a bunch of children, which I frankly did not expect. Did you?
I highly disagree with you because did you watch any of the games?
I did. I watched 2 of them, and
okay, honestly, I watched all 4, and I feel like, especially game 2, game 3, those games were infinitely closer than they probably should have been. Yeah, Anaheim, that series could have easily went to 6 or 7 if Calgary wins 2 of those games easily. Because those games were close. Even the game 4, game 3, they were up 5-1. If they held on to win that game, I mean, the series could have been a little bit different. But then, yeah, Brian Elliott just internally exploded, and it is what it is. But I don't think they got ran out. I think physically maybe they did get ran out a little bit, but skill, I don't know. Those games were pretty close for the most part. I think there was only one game where, like the last game, where that game was. As soon as Brian Elliott let in that 1 goal and then got pulled, it was over. I knew it. It was like 10 minutes into the game, and then they scored again, like on Chad Johnson on like his second shot against. I knew the series was over right there. Game 4, I'm like, yeah, now the sweeps. And that was like 11 minutes into the first period of the game 4. But all the other games, I think they were pretty close.
Well, I kind of felt like it was. I felt like if you look at a team if you look at a team's overall output I kind of view things. I work in the automotive industry, so I kind of view things through the visage of like cars, right? So if you look at a team's overall output as like having to go through a transmission, games 1 and 2 were in third gear at like 35 miles an hour. They're just kind of coasting. They're not into they have 2 or 3 more gears left, and they're just like, well, this team doesn't require that much effort. What I saw in game 3 and game 4 was Anaheim not even getting into their overdrive gear. Like, that's the thing. That's what I'm talking about with in terms of boys versus children. Like, men versus boys. Like, Anaheim to me looked like a team that held back because they were ahead. Get to game 3 and Calgary's like, no, we're going to score 5 on you. And Anaheim's like, oh, well, fucking no. And then they just walked to a victory. Like, a lot of people that I saw blamed that on Elliott. And by the way, I apologize for the noise. It's my neighbor. Anyways, a lot of people that I saw blamed that loss on Elliott. And I know that he has a lot to do with it. But I think that we've discussed this in the season. We discussed it over on Spinning the Wheels. I do not put the blame of a collapse like this on a goaltender. Yes, some of it is a goaltender, but a lot of it is a complete and utter inability to play defense. And while you can disagree with me on Calgary's overall play, you cannot say that Calgary played good defense in that series because they did not.
That was going to be the one thing. I mean, consistently, Dougie Hamilton was getting picked on nightly. That was a thing. He took some really bad penalties in Game 1, Game 2. He got burned a bunch in the comeback in Game 3. And then Giordano wasn't really anywhere else. I think he maybe only had 2 points, maybe 3. I think he was a minus overall. Their defense as a whole did not play really well. And I didn't expect their defense to do anything. But then again, it's like you can't have a 5-1 lead and let some of the goals you let in happen. Like, some of them were not the defense's fault. Like a red line goal off the inside of your leg.
That's
like,
true. Yeah, absolutely.
Like, that's the kind of stuff I'm just like. And the first goal in Game 4 that got him yanked, it was from the red line on an off wing. Like, you can't let that in. Like, you can't. You know this is the game you need to win to shift any kind of momentum. And 10 minutes or 8 minutes into the game, you let in a goal.
No, I agree.
You get yanked. That's it. He knew it. He knew it right there.
I'm not absolving Elliott of blame, but I'm just saying I don't think it's entirely him. I think it's like a 70-30 situation.
But I don't think necessarily Anaheim, like, heavily outplayed them. I think it's like they played well. Don't get me wrong. I'm not discounting them at all. They, as a team, they played well. Their guys showed up. Getzlaf, Perry, Kessler, Lindholm, like their players showed up and they played very well. You know, outside of one game where John Gibson got pulled, I thought he played pretty well. So, like, they played extremely well in most regards, but I don't think any way they just ran through Calgary. Like, it looks like it because they got swept, but like I said, Game 2, Game 3, I don't know, man.
Well, I mean, I agree to disagree because I just think that it looked to me like it kind of looked to me like if you were playing like if you about 5 years ago, or what year were you in like competitive tournament hockey?
Like, probably from like 2000 to like 2006.
Okay, so like you in 2003, which was 13 years ago, so you were 17. So it'd be like you at 17 years old competing against like the best 14-year-old hockey player. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
He's gonna hang with you, but you can just kind of land the cut.
I don't have to go 100%. I can go like 50 or 60%. Just kind of do what I got to do.
Yeah, it kind of felt to me like Anaheim just kind of laid in the cut and waited for their strikes. You know what I mean? They're the veteran boxer just waiting for their little jabs. You know what I mean? But you know, maybe I misread it. I'm willing to admit it 100%. We don't know. We won't resolve it here. Let's move on to the next series. This series was an absolute surprise for me because none of us, and I know you didn't, and Justin certainly didn't. None of us predicted that not only would Edmonton win, but that, save for one absolute housing, they would make San Jose look like a bunch of old guys who can't get it done in the postseason. Like, they made San Jose look like, you know, I mean, frankly, Detroit. Like, San Jose looked really bad in almost all of those games except for that 7-0 drubbing, which, I mean, honestly, I think that 7-0 drubbing was just like, fuck it. Like, just go.
Yeah,
like, you get to 5 and they just like, well, we're out. Like, let's just see what happens. You know what I mean? But the way Edmonton played in that series gives me hope in the second round. I mean, Edmonton just showed up. Like, they were better than we ever thought they were. What did you see from Edmonton in the first round?
I think the one thing I saw from Edmonton was, not to be cliche, resilience. Like, they got housed, and the game they got housed, I think that was like their wake-up call. Like, they're like, okay, we can't just coast in here and kind of play. We have to compete with these guys. Like, we have to outplay them. And I think the one thing for the second half of the series was they got way more discipline. They took way less penalties. And their power play showed up a little bit. And you have guys like Leon Draisaitl just coming out and scoring goals. And they had timely goals. It's the one thing I hate to be cliche about or just say that, but like literally when they needed a goal, they got the goal. When they needed to tie the game late to get to overtime and then get the win in overtime, they got it done.
Absolutely. They and Cam Talbot save again that 7-0 game. Cam Talbot was at certain points standing on his head. Their defense played better than I expected. Their defense played like a defense that's been there before, which was the most surprising part for me, that they played as if they've been in the postseason. They're like, okay, well, just flip that postseason switch and let's just start playing actual defense. And, McDavid, we haven't said his name to this point because what is there to say about him? He's everything he was billed to be and more. Like the guy clearly, I mean, save for, again, that 7-0 dropping, he committed a terrible penalty. He acted like a kid. He threw a bit of a temper tantrum, but that's to be expected. He's fucking 20. Like the fact that he's 20 years old and playing this good. I mean, I think I said it last week. Toronto Edmonton. That's your rivalry.
Yeah, I think part of it too is this next series we got to see more McDavid. Like I think that was his first playoff series. He kind of gets a pass. It's like, okay, you're in the second round now. You're playing against the Anaheim Ducks. They're going to show up. Now you really need to show up. Like I think there were some games where he kind of was just there. He played well, but he didn't do anything spectacular. Like there's always that when he got the puck, but he didn't really do much. And I think a lot of that maybe it was nerves too, and just the whole team in general played kind of nervous in Game 6. Yeah, but I think only time will tell if he's going to really be the real deal with this stuff. But I think he's off to a decent start. I was pleasantly surprised with how Edmonton played. It's nice to see different teams winning series like this, like completely. And like as you said earlier, it's probably the best hockey that I've seen in the postseason in quite some time.
Absolutely. Yeah, hands down. Now, when we jump over to the East, this is where you're going to have to kind of take over because I spent almost no time with two of these series. New York, Montreal, I spent a little bit of time with, but Ottawa, Boston, I mean, you're talking I spent maybe 8 total minutes with that series. I said it before, and I'll say it again. That series held almost literally zero intrigue for me. It was just not anything that fascinated me because in my mind, and to be fair, as this playoffs love to prove to me, I'm fucking wrong a lot. So, Ottawa may go on to be the fucking Stanley Cup champion the way that I predict, things to go down. But with that being said, in my mind, you were playing to lose in the second round because Montreal and New York, I mean, yeah, New York won in 6, but that series could have gone 7. That series did anybody win by more than one goal at any point?
I think one of the games was 3-1.
No, that was the last game, New York, the clincher, 3-1. But that's it.
Because they got the empty net goal at the end.
Okay, so nobody scored more than a 2-goal lead without a goalie, being gone. And you saw great goaltending, you saw great defense, you saw very fast hockey. I mean, I watched the highlights from that series, but Ottawa, Boston, did you spend any time with that series at all?
Yeah, I caught most of the overtimes in those games, and I was kind of pleasantly surprised with, again, 2 teams in a row that kind of showed up, and Bobby Ryan gets a lot of criticism, and he showed up and played very well with his line with Turris. I think, and then Carlson, that when it matters, he can play, and that's the one thing I know we give him a lot of crap because of the way he plays the game, but when it matters, man, he's out there and he's doing it, and I give him full credit for that. And the one thing too, just that team is so resilient. Like they don't take really bad penalties. Boston took a lot of bad penalties in this series. They took one, like questionable one that led to it, the overtime goal. I think it was in game 4 or 5, one of the two. I didn't have much hope for Boston because I feel like Boston had way too many injuries. I'm surprised they won 2 games. To be quite fair.
Yeah, this is not a 6-game series like Montreal, New York was. And Montreal, New York, like I said, I spent a little bit of time with you. Probably spent more time with it. So, what's your insight into that series?
I just think kind of what I predicted is New York is not going to be a slouch in that wild card spot. They're going to be a really good team, and they showed it. And a lot of it has to come down to goaltending. That whole series was legitimately goaltending. That's why it was such a low-scoring affair. And you got to tip your hat to both goaltenders. I know Carey Price is probably frustrated as hell going in, being 1 seed, having the season he had to be basically playing golf already. Like that's got to hurt a little bit. And then there's already trade rumors circling trading him, which is stupid. That just the whole nother bag of worms we'll get into at some other point probably. But I think the biggest thing for New York is this series, they need to put the foot on the gas, and they really need to bring it. They need to keep scoring goals. Rick Nash showed up again in the playoffs, which is always a plus. They had depth scoring. I hate it because it's like I always want to sleep on the Rangers, but like, man, they've looked really good the last month and a half, and they beat the number 1 seed in, their division. So, yeah.
They did, and I think they're going to walk to the conference finals personally because I don't think
I had a good feeling about them when I picked it in my bracket.
Yeah, and
I just had that feeling.
It's an absolutely safe pick. I won't fault you for that because New York Ottawa is just so bad. I know they're good. They won their series, and I know they had a good record all season, but they're not. Prove me wrong again, NHL. You love to do it, but I just don't feel like they're. I don't feel like they're real. I just don't. I can't buy into Ottawa. But, like I said, I've been wrong every other fucking time, so who knows? Let's jump into the second to last series before we get into the final series. Pittsburgh-Columbus, this was a series that was legitimately the inverse of the way I predicted it. I thought that Pittsburgh minus Letang is somewhat of a broken team with a scheme that, is somewhat dependent on his presence, and they proved me utterly wrong by walking through Columbus. Columbus at no point, except for Game 4, and even at the end of Game 4, when they're up 2, they couldn't, give it like 40 more seconds. They might have tied that game. Pittsburgh they treated Columbus. It was, again, just like Anaheim, Calgary. They're like, we've been here before, you haven't. Bye. You know what I mean? Like, it just didn't look like...
This one, I definitely agree with you more with that.
Yeah, this one was very much men versus boys. You took a guy like Sergei Bobrovsky who had a Vezina caliber, possibly Vezina winning season, and just made him look like a child. Like, they just... Werenski, yeah, we could talk all we want about Werenski. And real quick, side note, speaking on injuries, 2 things we didn't talk about I want to go back to just for 1 second. Erik Karlsson is currently playing with a hairline fracture somewhere. I forget where in his body. And Joe Thornton played the entire first round with
a torn ACL.
and a torn MCL. Like, both.
Dude, I was out for 10 months with that.
Yeah, and he's like, fuck it, I'm just going to keep playing. I'm 1,000 years old. My beard will keep me through it. But yeah,
I knew something was up, man. He looked a little slow.
He did. And a little slow. His knees in pieces. And speaking of injuries, that you shouldn't be playing with, Adam Werenski, being a tough guy hockey player, as we talk about all the time on this show, comes surging back in after taking a puck to the face and breaking his fucking orbital bone and says, I'm going to play hockey because I'm such a fucking man. And then it turns out he's going to be out for a while with a severe injury that he definitely shouldn't have played through. But that series, it just, I said it, but I want to hear you say it. I think men versus boys. You about the same?
Yeah, Pittsburgh just... They did it in an unconventional way. When I think of Pittsburgh, I think of like low scoring, really tight defense. And the one thing I think we forget, Marc-Andre Fleury was not even supposed to start the series. He was the number 2. And then Matt Murray gets hurt in warm-ups in Game 1, and then they threw Fleury in. And look how well he played.
Can I say something about that too? There is a weird thing about those two for me personally. In my head, I know... because of the show we do and standings watching, that Matt Murray is their starting goaltender. It's 1A, 1B, and a hard 1B. Fleury is the backup. He is, you come in to spell Matt Murray or if Matt Murray gets injured. But for me personally, I've seen 7 Penguins games this year. Never seen Matt Murray play. I haven't seen Matt Murray play 1 fucking second this year. I don't know how that's happened, but Matt Murray just... has evaded me, so I can't even rate him. I don't think I've even seen him play a game. Just I don't know. It's weird.
I think he played a game against Pittsburgh, against the Leafs that I watched. Yeah, it was like early October or something like that.
He doesn't seem to play much. It's like they want to keep his contract low or something. I don't know. Maybe just bad luck, bad timing on my part. But it's just a weird relationship I have with that team. So let's move into the final series because this is the series we both have the most to say about. I watched every single one of these games. You watched them with the vigor of me watching a Red Wings game. Washington, Toronto. Washington. Here's where I think we're going to disagree. I think Washington mostly controlled the series. I think Washington, I think it's a 6-game series that I don't like. For me personally, it was never really in doubt that they were going to win that series. But I think it's more sensationalist to pitch that Toronto, like, pushed them to the edge when Washington could have lost another game and still had a chance, to put it in no uncertain terms. And, I know that Toronto won 2 games, Washington won most of their games by 1 goal, but it felt to me like we were making mountains out of molehills kind of thing. Like, we're like, oh, Washington about to lose again. They're not fucking there. They're just, look at that. Here we go. Time for the young rookie team to upset the Washington Capitals. But I just never thought that it was going to happen. I mean, honest question, can you tell me as a objective hockey viewer that you thought that Toronto was going to win that series?
Somewhat. A little bit. Okay. On a percentage scale, like 30.
Okay.
Like 30-70. I was about 30-70 because, you were right. Washington controlled a lot of the pace of play, but Toronto never was, out of question. Even when the Capitals went up, 3-1 the one game, I was like, you know what? We came back the last 2 games. We probably could come back. What happened? We came back. I mean, things like that. When I think it's less of the Capitals not playing well or not being ready for them. It's just maybe Toronto was better than we actually thought, what their record is. And that's one thing, watching them all year, they had strides where they played really well, and they had strides where they didn't play so well, just like any team. But I had a feeling that maybe they might do something in this playoff series because they just had it written all over it for me. I'm just like, something could happen here. Did I think the Capitals would, flat out just falter and lose to the Leafs? No, because I think the Leafs, one, still too inexperienced. They have a lot of youth on that team that just got a crap ton of it. They've got almost 8 games worth of playoff experience if you count the overtimes, which is a good thing for the Leafs. But the one thing that really sold it for me is I never saw Alex Ovechkin panicked. I watched his interviews. He seemed calm. He showed up for these games. He got goals. He scored. And when anybody wants to say that Alex Ovechkin doesn't show up in a playoff series, I want them to look at how many goals he has or how many points he has per game and just don't even say, don't at me is what we would say on Twitter. Don't at me. Don't even say shit to me.
Because that dude is otherworldly in the postseason.
He is automatic. It's stupid.
It's a running conversation in this house with my roommate and I who watch a lot. He's a big Ovi fan also. And, he participates. The one difference between he and I is he will post on Facebook comments, on a national post of some sort, which is it's a terrible idea for me, but I respect him because he fights the fight. Because people will be like, "Oh yeah, Ovi's fell." People in Game 4 were like, "Ovi's faltering," and he's like, "No, the fuck, he's not." What are you talking about? Go look at the numbers.
Dude, he had 2 points in Game 4.
I know.
What are you talking about?
I know. They just want to see a Titan fall, basically. And I kind of look at, again, I view things through a spectrum, right? So I've been watching a lot of movies lately, right? So if we look at if we look at this the way I kind of perceive it, Washington's story to me is that of a Bond movie, right? And what's the biggest fight in a Bond movie? It's always the number 2. So Toronto represents the number 2. They just kept getting the fuck up and fighting back. No matter how many times he threw them off the train or threw them off the cliff, they kept getting up and showing up and ready to fight again. Their odd job, their jaws. They were a good team that was ready, but ultimately, and I say this with all respect for your fandom, they were not a part of the story. The story is going to be Washington-Pittsburgh. The story always was Washington-Pittsburgh, and it was just you had to earn it. You know what I mean? And I think Toronto's story is getting ready to get started. This is a piece of Toronto's story, but for right now, the story is Washington-Pittsburgh, and that's a great segue to lead into our second round. High five. The second round, let's just start with the coup de grace series. I mean, it's Washington-Pittsburgh. This is a series that we are, again, on opposing sides. You are of the belief, you're show me, prove it to me. You've tweeted out their 0-2 lifetime against them in series. I'm of the belief that this third time's a charm, and this is Washington's story. Like I said, this is their prove it moment, and I think that you will see a tough, gritty 7-game series. But I think, now we're going to get into the prediction segment. I see Washington in 7. How about you?
I see Pittsburgh in 7.
Really?
It just, it's got to, like, you got to prove it to me. If they can beat them, this changes everything for the rest of the playoffs. But I didn't have this matchup in the second round. I had Columbus and Washington. And that's easy. That's Washington all day. But this is their Goliath. Like, if they can't beat Sidney Crosby and the Penguins 2 years in a row, I mean, you got to think if they get bounced by Pittsburgh, this team is getting dismantled. They're moving Cap. They're changing something, because like you can't go 2 series in a row against the same team and then get bounced like in the playoffs. You can't, not in a market like Washington, like with that kind of talent.
Yeah, I guess, but I mean, I don't know. Let's not get into what they could do, but I think
just more of it is just like I have that feeling about Pittsburgh, just like I did last year when Pittsburgh went on that roll. They played really well, and then like I didn't expect them to beat first round because last year they played New York. I didn't expect them to beat New York, and then they come out and they beat New York in a pretty good fashion with depth scoring. That's the thing. We didn't hear of like Connor Sheary and Russ and all these other guys until last year, the playoffs. The playoffs made those guys, and the HBK line, obviously. Now you have the same thing happening. We have Getzel, we have all these other guys, and those guys from last year are second-year players now, so it's like sky's the limit for that team. And I think in reverse, this is Pittsburgh's telling series, because if Pittsburgh wins this to get to the conference, they might be going back to the playoffs, and they might be repeating champions. Who knows? Like it's a really big dynamic this early in the postseason.
No, it is, and it's actually this is, you're going to see the caliber of a Stanley Cup matchup with these two. And honestly, I think that
this is the conference finals.
I was going to say, honestly, I think that looking at every other team that is left standing, this is the only series that merits like guaranteed must-see watch. Like this is the only series that you have to, like, I'm telling you, listener, this is going to drop tonight. I hope you listened to us before Friday. This is the series you have to watch every single fucking second of, if you can. You know, work obviously limits some of us for some of us.
7:30, game 1.
Yeah, every second you can watch of that series, watch it, because it's going to be good. I mean, you're seeing 2 prime teams, both in their prime. You know, both with interesting stories to tell. You know, Pittsburgh wanting to be the first repeat champion since 97-98, and Washington wanting to, you know, be the first time to, you know, even get to a cup final. You know what I mean? So it's full of intriguing storylines, and it's full of great players top to bottom. Do we even want to talk about New York, Ottawa? Go ahead, because I got nothing to say.
I got New York all day in this one. I think this one could be a little bit easier than the Montreal series, to be honest, because like I sleep on Ottawa because they've never proven to me that when they need to get it done, that they can get it done.
Yeah,
and New York, I think, is a lot more of a like just better put together team. They have really good. I'm not saying their goaltending isn't good, because Anderson has played phenomenal in round 1. He did, but now they're playing They're playing a better team. Like Boston was not. They probably didn't even deserve to get. They were maybe going to be wild card number 2 going into the last week of the series. Like it could have been Toronto instead of them. So like, I don't know, man. I just think that series is probably going to be a 4 or 5 game in New York's favor. I think New York's going to come out and score a lot of goals, because I kind of sleep on Ottawa's defense a little bit, and their penalty killing is not very good. That's kind of their slouch.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a 4-1, 4-2 series tops. I mean, worst case scenario. But again, I'm wrong about everything. So who the fuck knows? Let's jump over to the all color matching Western Conference semifinals, which is the dark blue and orange, dark black and orange, blue and yellow. Let's start with the blue and yellow, Nashville, St. Louis. That's a series that I think holds a lot of intrigue in terms of you're playing to either lose in the conference finals or lose in the finals, because I don't think that, and I can't believe I'm saying this given the tone of the league the last few years, I don't think that any team left standing in the West has a legitimate chance at the Cup. Like, I just don't. I'm not a believer in any of these 4 teams in terms of their actual chance to win the championship. I mean, Nashville, St. Louis, yeah, it's going to be a good series. Don't get me wrong. You're going to see a lot of good play. They have a lot. They both roll 3 or 4 lines, and they both have great goaltenders. You know, at opposite ends of their career, with Pekka Rinne wanting to prove that he's a great goalie, and Jake Allen, you know, trying to prove that he's worth his contract. But you know, when St. Louis gets rid of a guy like Kevin Shattenkirk, I don't have belief in their ability to run the full 4 rounds necessary to win a cup. And I certainly have no real faith in Nashville. I think Nashville played really good in the first round, but I think that this is, I mean, it might be a 6-game series, but I couldn't predict a winner. I would have to probably say Nashville at this point. Nashville in 6. That's what I'm going to call it. How about you?
I think this is one of those sneaky ones because, they went out and they beat Big Brother Chicago in a handedly fashion. So they got a little, it's kind of like when your little brother gets big enough to try to play you in one-on-one. He like beats you one time and he gets kind of cocky. So he's like, let's go again. And it's like, you learn from the mistakes. So it's like, I don't think St. Louis will sleep on Nashville like Chicago did. I think St. Louis is a little bit more prepared team going into this. And the one thing I think is really going to be telling is the goaltending because Pekka Rinne showed up first round.
Jake Allen.
Thank you. Jake Allen, I think, played really, really well for St. Louis. That was the one thing I knew needed to happen for St. Louis to be doing pretty well. And he did. He showed up. So I think this is going to be a really low scoring series because both of these teams can't really score a lot of goals. That's the one thing that I think is going to turn a lot of people off and even just watching because it's going to be 2-1, 1-0 for most of the games because it's just all defense and goaltending.
I agree. It's going to be a hard-fought series. You're going to see a lot of corner play, a lot of board play, a lot of attempts to set up, but not successfully because both teams have really good defenses. And
I still think St. Louis for this, just because, like, as much as I want to, ride the fandom train that is the Predators, all of a sudden everybody I know is like, oh yeah, Predators are going to win the Stanley Cup. Let's calm down. They played St. Louis, who went to the conference finals last year. They're a good team.
Yeah, kind of.
They're not a sludge team.
Yeah.
So, and if you think about it, every team that won in the first round, like, they dominated. Now they're actually playing a better team. So it's like these series are going to be a lot better. And just to kind of piggyback off what you said, the Eastern Conference, like, all the Eastern Conference series were really close. Like, they were long, drawn out games. They were way more competitive, except for maybe the Pittsburgh series. Yeah. So I think the teams in the East are a little bit more favored to win the Stanley Cup in this. So.
Okay, and then our last series to talk about, which is Anaheim and Edmonton. I think this is the exact opposite of St. Louis, Nashville in terms of scoring. You're going to see a lot of 5-4, 6-5, 4-3, maybe a couple 3-2s. And I mean, it's just high octane offense in two different styles of offense too. Anaheim likes to, elbow their way to your zone and then give it to Corey Perry to roof it backhand and, see what happens. Edmonton, on the other hand, is a much quicker, much more finesse style team. I think I have to give, and I can't believe I'm saying this, because I didn't pick them in the first round, but I have to give the edge to Edmonton because I think that they have the pieces. Their pieces are better, I believe. I'm a believer in McDavid. I'm a believer in Edmonton's defense this year, and I'm a hell of a believer in Cam Talbot. I'm actually really offended that he's not on that Vezina finalist list because the guy gets it done. The guy will stand on his head despite the fact that no one gives him credit for doing so. And I got to give it to Edmonton in 6. How about you?
I got to lean towards Edmonton just because of what they showed me. Like, they showed me that they're meant to be here. It's not a fluke. They're ready to play it. They're not the number 2 seed for nothing. And now they're playing the number 1 seed from their division. So, I mean, I think the one thing, though, this is going to be a really physical series. It's going to be fun to watch because there probably is going to be a lot of just after the whistle stuff like there was in the Calgary, Anaheim first round series. But I just think this is going to be a lot more offense, like you indicated. And I think this is where you got to see McDavid shine and just take over. And if he does, we're going to be looking at a conference final with Edmonton Oilers for the first time since 2006.
Yeah, and that would be fascinating to see because
I love that.
That fan base is, I mean, second only to maybe Toronto and Calgary in terms of their dedication and the amount that they show up. Yeah. Show off the fact that you have a Toronto shirt on. I get it. I know you were just stretching, but you are wearing a Toronto shirt. And real quick, if I may touch before we segue away from the playoffs, if I may touch on what I saw in that Toronto Washington series, that is a fan base that is, both on a personal level because my partner on this show is a huge fan of that team, but also on a objective level, that is a fan base that needs a championship. Like, they are 100% loyal. It's not, you're not seeing a lot of like Cubs, Blackhawks, where it's like nobody who likes those teams liked them 7 years ago, except for the 20 fans that have been fans since 1945. But outside of that, it's just a bunch of people who are like, Kane and Taves are my favorite, and I like Chris Bryant. But, like, they weren't there for the hard times, as opposed to Toronto, who, I mean, that I think I've said it like 15 times on the show. the season ticket waiting list is like 78 years long, and that's just ridiculous. And I'm rooting for them next year. They're one of my horses next year because they built their team right and their fan base deserves it. But so segueing out just to kind of wrap our show up with a sort of lighthearted topic, because you mentioned that it should be a topic on the show, and I'm curious as to what avenue you'd like to explore it conversationally. Hockey equipment, I believe you said it was gear is life, gear is a way of life, and I'm finally giving Steve a microphone to talk about something that is a passion of his, and I'm going to stop hogging
lifestyle.
I'm going to stop hogging the microphone. Go ahead, buddy.
No, when we were talking about all that stuff the other night, it was like when I had that moment where it's like I haven't had a chance to, like, we do this weekly, so I get this out, and it's like me and you will text message, and I'll talk to a few other people about like in-depth hockey, like on ice, NHL stuff. But then there's that other side of the game that if you grow up playing, after a while you get just anchoring for gear. Like it's a very big thing. I'm even part of a Facebook group that's synonymous and has actual pros in it. It's like Gear Whores or something like that. It's like they're like Garrett Sparks from the Toronto Maple Leafs is actually in the group. Like there are pros in the group. It's really cool. So we just post about gear and different colors and setups, and it's just one of those things I've been super passionate about. More so after I stopped playing, because it's like, when you start playing, you can't really afford all this different equipment and all these different things. Your parents are scrapping money together just so you could play and get ice time. But now you're an adult, you have resource and money, and then you're just like. And the internet is a really big thing with this too. Obviously, gathering equipment, and internet sales, and things like that. Like the website I showed you, the Pro Stock Hockey Gear. I mean, that's just like it's a field day for me. I feel like a kid in a candy store anytime I walk into a store.
No, and I agree, and that's I kind of wanted. I thought it was a good topic to talk about, because for me this is sort of the ultimate guilty pleasure to some extent, because. I mean, you want to talk about no more expensive hobby to have. You want a pair of gloves? That's $115. You want a stick? That's $270. Oh, you want elbow pads? That's $90. Meanwhile, I look behind Steve, and he's got like a professional rack of sticks. Like, what the fuck, dude? Like, how do you like pull that off?
That's like probably 4 years worth.
Oh wow!
I mean,
yeah.
A lot of it too is like you get sales. Like I'm one of these guys like too that's like. If I buy a stick, I want to buy it and I like it and I know I'm going to like it, I buy like at least 3, because it's like you have one backup, and then if one breaks, you replace the backup. You're good. And that'll last me probably 6 to 8 months. So.
Wow. I plan on, now here's where we disagree. I plan on buying one stick to last me like forever. So.
Well, I mean, that'll be more realistic for you than it is for me. I'm out there playing ice, generally 2, maybe 3 nights a week, and when I used to was playing heavier, and then like maybe some roller in there too, so it's like it's constant wear and tear, so you kind of go through things.
Let's talk about roller for 1 second.
Okay.
Fuck you, skate companies. There are people out there who have
that was so troubling for me, man.
There are people out there who have long feet and don't wear a wide shoe. You know what I mean? Like, I wear a size 14 shoe, not wide, regular width. I'm a big fat guy, but I got narrow feet. Well, not even narrow, standard feet. I have standard normal feet, but they're a size 14, okay? When I went, I started this endeavor talking to Steve. I said, I want to learn how to skate on hockey style skates or ice style skates, an ice style boot. I've been skating for 27 years with recreational boot. Never really had a problem with it, but if I'm trying to join a roller league, it's not the best look to show up with the Velcro and the plastic snaps.
You might as well have a light flashing over you.
Exactly. So I thought, maybe I'll jump in and I'll this guy doesn't know what he's doing. I do know what I'm doing, but I look like I don't know what I'm doing. But so I thought, maybe I'll jump on the hockey boot style skate. And Steve's like, oh, here's all these good brands and here's all that stuff. What size do you wear, buddy? And I'm like, well, I wear a 14 skate. And he's like, oh, so about that.
I think the highest I found was a 13 when I was looking, and then you found a few 14s.
No, I found a few 13s. I've yet to find a 14. And in 13s, there are only, 3 brands? There's Tour. There's a brand I never heard of called Alkali, which, if we're going to do gear talk, let's talk about it a little bit. What is Alkali? It sounds like a fucking store brand.
No, it's a legitimate roller hockey company out of California. Like I said, I had a lot of people in this area that play roller hockey, they were fanatic about it when the company was starting and got sponsorships. Like, shout out to my buddy Joey, who's going to be my best man at my wedding, actually, by the way, sideway. But yeah, he was rocking Alkali for a really long time. I got a pair of gloves from them before just to try out, and they're a legitimate company. They're a good company, but I think they recently just got bought out by somebody. I can't remember though.
Oh, okay. And then when I started looking into sticks and stuff, I mean, moving past the skate thing.
Of course, you found the.
Of course, I found the what? I'm sorry, your mic cut off.
Of course, you found the Eastons.
Yeah, because I'm an Easton Slappy, man. I've always been an Easton Slappy. I've had nothing but Easton sticks. I have 2 Warrior sticks that I bought on a discount rack. They're intermediate size. They're like 25 whip, 25 flex. I think they're actually like 65 and 85. But I put stubs in them and call them an adult stick. But I'd never. And then you revealed to me an interesting tidbit about Easton, which maybe our fans don't know. Why don't you tell them?
Easton Hockey got bought out by Bauer Hockey beginning of 2016, mid 2016. So yeah, they just kind of was like, "Yeah, we're gonna buy out our competition," because that was legitimately their only competition in the sticks. I mean, a lot of people like to say Warrior and CCM, all that, but Easton was always the go-to for a lot of people with sticks. Like protective, it's pretty much always been Bauer, and skates pretty much always Bauer unless you have a certain kind of foot. Then you wear CCMs, but it's pretty much been Easton's, and it kind of disappointed me because it's like instead of getting better, they just bought their competition. And it's like, are they even going to use the technology that made them great? Probably not. They probably just bought it so they don't have to worry about it.
Which is a bummer.
But then again, Karma and Bauer, they're literally filing for bankruptcy, so who knows?
Oh, great. So we might not get any brands except for fucking Adidas sponsored brands.
Pretty much.
Can't wait. Can't wait. You know what the funny thing too is, you start looking into these brands. I'm like, man, what happened to RBK? They used to make such good, they used to have the weird holy stick that Datsuk used. I think it was something Sickick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked that stick. It was kind of weird, but then you find out that RBK doesn't make hockey stuff anymore because their parent company, Adidas, said our other company, CCM, which Adidas also owns, is going to be our hockey division. What the fuck? Is it all going to be just Adidas in one company in the future?
I don't know, but I know all they basically did is they shifted the line to CCM and just rebranded it as CCM. It's all the same products. You could still get like the Ripcore. That was a Reebok product. That is now a CCM line for skates, protective, and sticks. I mean, it's pretty much the same thing. And then they still do the super fast stuff, like with the tailor-made stuff, which is interesting. But
what do you mean?
Well, they basically took golf technology and put it in one of their sticks a few years ago, and it was like this huge selling point. And that stick literally was like one of the least bought sticks, and I think it was like it had a really bad puck feel. It wasn't a great stick. So
shocker. So let's just do a quick little let's do a discussion on best ofs. Like, what's your best brand of stick and best model within that brand, or are they separate, like model and brand? I know it's all field. Let's just say best quality.
For me, the last few years, it's definitely been Warrior, and that's not because it's a local product or that I know people. I physically have used it. I have 4 of them behind me. Like literally, that's all I've used the last few years, and I think they've come a long way in terms of their just better marketing. And I think one of the best moves that they did is they added the Easton stick guy to do their oversee their stick division, so their sticks infinitely got better. And I think they're just doing a lot of things that players want. They want, at every price point, their stick is dominating, especially at the $100 price point, which, by the way, is super competitive nowadays because not everybody has $250 to pay for top of the line. So they put all this technology into the $100 stick and the $250 stick. It's perfect. So I would say the Warrior, the Covert is what I use. I know the QRL is what it's called now. You said they were like the ugliest things in the world, but that's probably the best feeling thing I've ever shot a puck with.
Okay.
Except from like a Bauer, like 7 years ago, they had a 195. It was like one of the best sticks I ever shot. But
okay, so let's jump over to a little bit of protecting. Let's jump into gloves here. In terms of just regular old player gloves used on street and on ice, they're basically the same. Who are you picking?
I think Warrior again.
Oh no!
My Warrior stuff is like sitting right here. I mean, I've wore Warrior gloves for a really long time. They're really comfortable. They're really durable. They last a long time. The palms, that's one of the biggest things. The palms last a really long time. And I would say runner up, honestly, is a brand called True, which is a newer brand. They just started putting out some sticks and some gloves in the NHL in the last few years. Bobby Ryan is one of the guys that uses them. They actually have a replaceable palm now, which is pretty cool.
Wow, I didn't even know that was possible.
Like, it's a zipper thing. You can unzip a palm, get a new palm, put it on, and zip it back in your glove, and you're good to go.
Oh, so it's like the blades are on ice skates now?
Yeah, like on ice skates, they have the pop-out blades, which is pretty cool. Say you break one, you just have your backup spet, and you just put it right in, and you're good to go.
Wow, that's
it's
impressive.
Toolless too. It's even better. Like, you don't need a tool to do it; you just pop it out.
That's impressive. That's kind of crazy, actually.
Hockey technology has come a long way, man.
As far as gloves go, I'm a devout CCM guy. I like the way that it's a particular thing. I'm a CCM guy from 2011. I have not checked into gloves now, but in 2011, what CCM was doing that was different than anyone else, at least in my experience, I'm a left-handed player, right? So the right hand of my stick is on the top of my stick, and when I press forward to skate, the bend on the outside of the top of the right glove, it bends outward, which at the time when I bought CCM gloves, they were the same as Ovechkin wears. They were like $190, whatever they were. I forget what they were now. But there was no other glove at that price point or at any other price point that I found at Pirani's in 2011 or 2010 that had an outward bend on the right glove, specifically on the right glove, which was phenomenal to me. Does that exist today, or was that like kind of a one-off trick move? Or
I think that was like a one-off thing. I think most of the gloves nowadays, they have more flexible cuffs, like the new Warriors and Bauer started doing this a few years ago, where they made the cuff more flexible, but it was like an inner cuff inside the glove that would flex with your hand. So it'd be like a really wide cuff and then like an inner cuff around your wrist. So it would like protect your wrist, but then give you mobility. It's pretty cool.
I did not even know that was a thing. I need to get back into this a little bit because, I mean, we're talking about, I feel I went from being fairly competent and fairly aware of most brands within a specific product, whatever it was I was looking for, to I'm having to ask you everything when we were having that conversation.
But I mean, like, hockey's changed so much, and it's kind of monopolized. It's literally either
that's what
CCM
I was going to ask you, yeah,
and Bauer, but then like you sprinkle in some Warrior things, you sprinkle in some other brands that are trying to do things, which is cool. But it's literally dominated by two brands in most facets.
And it's worth noting too that in this entire conversation, which is now 10 minutes, amazingly, you have not once recommended Bauer or CCM in almost anything they do.
You haven't asked me the category of what I would recommend them in.
What category would you recommend them in?
Skates for both.
Oh, really?
Skates is one of those things. It's very personalized on how your feet are. Everybody's feet are so different that, like, if you're in the, like, just a PSA, if you're in the market for either a helmet or skates, you need to go to a place and try everything on that you can. I don't care if you annoy the hell out of the 14-year-old who's handing you the stuff. Like, try everything on, because the worst thing you could do is spend $400 or $500 and regret your choice because you didn't take the extra time to just fit something that fits a little bit better than you thought.
And we're going to take one moment before we jump into more brand conversation to do a promo, because we're at an hour. So this is a promo for Over Under Fair.
I'm Dave, the host of Over Under Fair. Listen in as me and my crew of podcasting misfits talk out all sorts of topics underneath the pop cultural umbrella. Movies, music, TV shows, video games, sports, social media, dining habits. There's nothing we won't cover in our unending quest to label all things as either overrated, underrated, or fairly rated. New episodes post every other week, presented to you by SportsRadioDetroit.com. That's Over Under Fair, the final word in pop culture relevance.
Because I feel like a salad tossing might feel good.
What? Out of Bounds Detroit podcast. Tuesday morning and Friday mornings here on SportsRadioDetroit.com.
Spinning the Wheels, Thursdays on SportsRadioDetroit.com.
Detroit's biggest problem this whole year, their goal scoring has been really low. And also, their shot selection has been putrid. It's been really bad most games. So you have that combination, you're going to get outshot in a lot of situations.
Hey guys, it's Jeremy from Mitten Sports Talk. Don't forget to catch Eric, Roger, and I every Sunday from 10 to noon on Sports Radio Detroit and CRBRadio.com. And if you happen to miss the show, you can find all of our shows on SoundCloud, Podbean, and the iTunes podcast app.
So anyways, jumping back into our conversation, let's pay a little bit of attention to goalies, because goalies are something that often it seems they're both ends of a spectrum. They are both neglected and also over cared for to some extent. Do you know what I mean? Like you see like within a pad they'll be like, oh, this is form fitted to each hair on your leg, but also it's like there's only like 8 different brands. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is there any one of those brands that's running away in terms of pads?
I'd say it's pretty even between CCM and Bauer, to be honest with you, because both lines have really good equipment. And you throw Warrior in there a little bit. They just started doing pads in the last few years, but those two brands, especially the CCM, has probably have a little bit of the lead on that, just because they pretty much have brought in all the Reebok technology. So I would give them kind of the leg.
No respect for a Bryans or a Vaughn?
Vaughn's a little bit, but Bryans are really hard to get nowadays because they don't make as many of them. And Vaughn's, I think it's really selective in your area. You're better off trying to get CCMs or Bowers because it's just more readily available.
Oh wow, I did not know that. Okay, well that's a good place. I think that's a good place as I need to wrap it up. I mean, we did it. We covered gear. Well, you know what? Real quick though, before we wrap it up, I do want to ask: goal sticks. Is it Warrior again for you?
I say it's whatever you can find your technical goal curve that you like, because some brands have differentiating curves, just like sticks. Like some sticks, I like Warrior because they have a pattern that I can use. Like some brands don't always. They have some of them that are the same within the two lines, but there's like finite ones that, you know, when you play as long as I have or somebody else might have, they want finite things in their patterns. So it's like they have to get those higher end one-off made sticks. So, but I think with goaltending, it's just kind of whatever you can afford, probably in that range. Like same with sticks, honestly. Like if you can afford to get the good stuff, get the good stuff. But if you can't, get whatever works.
Well, that's good. That's a great place to leave it, actually. And you know, in terms of places to leave it, you know, this is the part where I usually say subscribe to us on iTunes, but if you're not in iTunes, blah, 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 blah. I will do all that, but I want to take a moment for our iTunes and Podbean listeners. It is really important. You know, this is coming from me, this is coming from Steve, coming from Justin, coming from the Podfather himself, Roger Castillo. We need you, if you want to keep us in your life, we need you to rate and review us. We cannot express enough how much the ratings and the reviews help us in terms of our growth and our expansion into different sports or spending more time with the sports you love. And, you know, we can only get to a certain point by word of mouth. And we're at that point right now where we have full saturation. You know, we have, you know, full disclosure, we are a very popular website. We're very grateful for every single click and every single view and every single reshare and every single retweet. Don't get me wrong, I love it. But those of you out there that are participating, and I know you're there because I see the downloads, you listen to us every week, I need you to take the 3 to 5 minutes that it takes tops to honestly, if it's a 3-star, 2-star, 1-star, whatever, I'd prefer a 5-star because we work really hard and spend a lot of money on this show. But I need you to rate and review the SRD feed on iTunes and on Podbean. It helps us to expand. It helps more eyes and ears get to our show. And if you like our show, that's what you want anyways. So, subscribe to us on iTunes. We'll have an announcement about that too in the future. I know I referenced it back in, I want to say February, but it's coming up pretty soon here in the next week or two. Hopefully in the next week or two, might be a month. We'll be doing a splitting of the feed, and I'll get into that more when it happens. If you're not into iTunes, you can check us out on TuneIn Radio, Podbean, Stitcher, Facebook. I think we're on the Google Play Store now. I always forget. You can follow the brand on Twitter at Sports Radio DET. You can follow our sister show with its occasional monthly tweets at STW_SRD. You could follow me on Twitter at JM Pinkham. You could follow Steve on Twitter at
Franchise GFX.
Check out our website at sportsradiodetroit.com. Thank you, and we'll see you guys next week.